Okay, can you guys all see that main?
Yes.
The person. Okay, and you can't see my notes now. It's just the main screen,
You
right?
can see your notes.
You can see them?
Yeah.
Your notes.
That's weird. Thanks, Dane, for telling me.
You're welcome.
I don't know if to not have them.
I still have them.
What?
I still have them.
There you go.
Well, I can't see the notes.
You're good. You're good.
Oh, is that Ian?
Hi, Amanda.
Hey. Wait, okay, so if I go back, you can see again.
We can see them now.
Darn it. Okay, I have paper notes. Okay, I'm gonna get started. Thank you everyone for being here. This talk is for my MFA Thesis Exhibition. I installed this past weekend. The show is currently up at Purdue University. So I've included, as many of the new images of the work installed, and I have a video as well. Okay, so as you can see, the title of my show is Playroom. This has been a long time in the making, 3 years at Purdue, but over 26 years of following my dream to become an artist and receive my MFA. I have structured this presentation chronologically as it makes sense with my themes and with my development as an artist. I identify as a painter, but I work with all different materials to express ways that my personal childhood has impacted me, as well as the significance in broken or missing familial relationships. I was raised by a strong and single mom and have a brother who is 14 years older than me. I spent a lot of time with Barbies, teaching myself how to braid my doll's hair, climbing trees in my backyard and drawing, lots and lots of drawing. These qualities of my childhood have stuck with me and made their way into the work I am making today. This is a detail of my work titled Life is Just a Short Walk from the Cradle to the Grave, which is a quote by novelist Alice Childress. This title encapsulates this piece as well as my work as a whole. There are going to be many references to childhood, but it's important to be reminded that death is near. The title of my show, Playroom, is about giving myself the freedom to have a second childhood, to play and experiment while also integrating actual elements of play, such as toys and games like Barbie accessories, baseballs, and doll clothes. I work mainly with found objects, cement, and caustic, and wood. This is a huge change from the work I was making when I got to Purdue. I came in as an old painter who had not really branched outside of 2D work. The key moment where it started to look something like how it looks today is when I took materials and processes with Siggy Zahner and was introduced to cement. Cement, as well as the language of materials, resonated with me and made me realize that the kind of work I wanted to make should be more dynamic and sculptural than a flat in order to interact with you on a physical level. Being trained as a painter has a lasting impression on me. It can be seen in the way I use color, shapes, and layering in my sculptural relief, wall hangings, and soft paintings. Cement has been such an important material for me in the last few years. I have gone through countless bags of Quikrete Portland cement. The material has a dichotomy that keeps me interested in working with it. It's usually thought of as a construction material that is strong, sturdy, and heavy. I have found that cement can be fragile and brittle. I've used it as a type of adhesive, as a frame, and a which to dip fabric and to hold its shape, to give things a sense of permanence. Here are a few examples from my Roadside Memorial series that I started in my first semester at Purdue. They are made of found objects in either concrete or cement, and they are all about 42 inches tall. I made about 18 of these. I moved on from this work, but still think about the act of memorialization and preservation and how that can be implemented by the use of materials such as cement or wax. I make work about memory. I think about how to visually show the way long-term memories can be super crisp versus other memories that either fade away as time goes on, or as one looks back at a particular memory with its fading, the owner starts to reconstruct the memory. In this aspect, eventually most of the original details change and the current or new memory may be entirely different. This particular work, which I made at an artist residency the summer after my first year at Purdue, was groundbreaking for me, as I still used a photo reference as I had with my oil paintings, but instead I let the mood and the process take over. There are two sisters sitting in a chair, most likely giggling or playing together. This is a photo of my paternal aunts from the 1970s. It's since faded into the background and new moments stand out in stark contrast. One of the girls in the photo has since passed away in a car accident at the age of 42. I have chosen to memorialize her in a couple of my works using the car from the Game of Life in this piece, as well as her wedding photo embedded in cement in one of the roadside memorial crosses. I participated in a group installation project at the end of 2019. Each artist responded to the building and its prior history. It had been an assisted living facility and the inside was dark, cramped, and dreary. I couldn't believe this is the place people lived their final days. I decided on a location outdoors. I was initially drawn to this side of the building from afar looked like a painting. Everything was flattened. The raised area under the stairs reminded me of a bed, and I decided this could be my version of a final resting place, including nostalgic things like beaded curtains made from pink toy soldiers and a neon green shag rug and inflatables. The opening of the show took place during an afternoon that went on into an evening. I was the only artist in an outdoor location. I had to incorporate light in some way. The way the building was constructed, there were interesting shaped cutouts that I wanted to emphasize. I used a light source on the outside to protect shadows of geometric shapes. This added to the bedroom feel, kind of like a nightlight. My intent with creating a bedroom outside was that it could serve as the last place before someone passed on. Instead of being in a room trapped, they could be free and open. With the pandemic starting over a year before my show, it has made an impact on my work. I had been working on my sculpture titled Room right before everyone here at Purdue was no longer allowed on campus. While at home, I wanted to take advantage of the space I had, so I cleared out the closet in order to make a new pink room. I covered the walls with all the fabrics I'd collected and even went as far as to cover the fluorescent with pink tulle, but it wasn't necessary. I discovered that when I had a small space and one color, the space absolutely radiates with that hue. I started spending time sitting in the space and my vision went pink and my skin and anything I brought in glowed with the hue. I decided after spending time within the closet that I would photograph myself within it. At first, I documented just myself using my iPhone in a timer. I used Martha Graham's lamentation performance as inspiration for how to position my body. As I was performing, I was thinking about the pandemic and being in lockdown in my apartment and how me spending so much time in this space was another layer to the experience. I eventually added the quilt I had been stitching and used that as a metaphorical armor, but it could also be used for warmth or some other type of protective shroud. Graham's costume really influenced her movements, and that is how I felt while choosing different positions with the quilt. Here's an example of how she positioned her body in conjunction with the garment she wore for her performance. I used the quilt as a layer between me and the radiating pink glow, as well as a way to transform my body and to cover my face. I wanted the positions to be about how the figure moved and not about the identity of the performer. This project was pretty temporary. I had it set up in my closet for a couple of weeks. I changed the fabric around so that there were two different setups. I photographed myself over the course of a few days. The photos taken on my phone are the only record of the project. The way this project has extended into my current art practice is that I don't completely rely on written record as my sketchbook process. It helped me learn to use alternatives such as recording myself speaking or just sitting with the piece and letting my mind wander. This earlier work has informed one piece in particular in the show. I made this piece titled "To Uncover" from a laundry bin that was about to be thrown in the dumpster. As I cut the fabric away from the welded metal frame of the rolling cart, it became clear that the shape and surface markings would make it impactful as a painting to hang on its own with very little added to it. Moving on to the work that is specifically in my show, here's the piece influenced by the work in the previous slide. The pandemic and being in lockdown was the perfect time to sew my collected objects by hand. For this work called Second Skin, I collected about 100 used baseballs, ranging from professional to practice balls, mostly made from leather, and started out with the intention to make a wearable. As I worked on it, it became clear that it would work well, hung on the wall, spread like an off-kilter cross shape, also referencing my previous crosses in the Roadside Memorial series. This piece encapsulates working with used or discarded objects that hold memories, as well as what the baseball symbolizes for me personally. My father played baseball, and that's one of the only things I know about him. As I grew up, I grew up as an athlete playing t-ball and softball, among other sports. Some of those traits have made their way into my art practice. So here's just a detail of the back of it with many loose threads. Another piece in the show is titled "A Bed," very much influenced by Rauschenberg's bed, as well as Tracy Emin's work, My Bed. The bed is a private and intimate space, as well as a source of comfort. It has a long history in the world of art, but for me personally, it is a safe space. This piece, titled "Lickable Wallpaper," started as a plan to cover an entire wall in the gallery with a wallpaper of shadows. It's developed into a dimensional suspended cement quilt that is awash in magenta light. The color pink is embedded in my work because my child was innately pink. Most products I used, from toys to clothing to sports gear, came in pink for girls. My favorite color was black because I wanted to rebel against having to like the girly color. To this day, pink is not one of my top favorite colors, but it's important to acknowledge its use in my work as something that is unavoidable. I do not think that issues of gender are the main takeaways from this body of work, but could be something I focus on in the future. Along with stitching all the baseballs, I had been taking apart collected pink stuffed animals and stitching them back together to create painterly compositions. My decision-making process entailed matching similar values of the hue together in order to form larger sections of shapes, as well as to have separated legs and backwards faces stick out from the flat surface in order to create undulation and a bit of a Frankenstein effect. This goes back to how memories can be constructed. I think of these quilts to have bits of information, and each part together makes the whole memory. Two of the walls in my room sculpture, which I'll get to shortly, are made up of these stuffed animal skins. The used stuffed animal, which has been loved and hugged by a child or an adult, bears physical marks of that interaction. A lot of times, the toys I found had the owner's name written with Sharpie on the tag, or upon taking it apart, I would find the soft heart that the folks at Build-A-Bear Workshop put into the toys. Here's just an image of me working on one of the walls so you can get an idea of the scale. After collecting so many stuffed animals and taking them apart, I accumulated a ton of stuffing or polyfill. I started to imagine making thick cord-like sculptures where the stuffing was so tightly packed it expanded outside of its support. There are also a slew of smaller cords, which symbolize the feeling of disconnection, almost like literally getting your wires crossed. These cords were loosely based on umbilical cords. I wanted their origin to be the white cube, aka the gallery, but for the one remaining cord to connect with my room sculpture, which ultimately acted as the placenta or the life source. So that's the extension of it connecting to the room. Okay, so I have a short clip to show you the room sculpture. So the room sculpture has been in the making for a year and a half, almost a year and a half. I had the idea to make a pink room. My original intention was to fill a room with pink found objects as a type of installation. As I started working on it, I made the decision for the size of the room to fit one occupant. The choice of building materials such as the exposed wood relates to ideas of construction, such as constructing memories or constructing a childhood, as well as actually building a treehouse or playhouse. The materials, as well as the way the piece is interacted with, shows my influence of the work by Robert Rauschenberg and Jessica Stockholder. Rauschenberg's combines, particularly Charlene and Minutia, which use light sources, combine built structures in a wide variety of media and found materials, were groundbreaking in how they dealt with space. In Charlene, the placement of the light makes it hard to tell what is reality versus what is the painting. The placement and how the skinny panel juts out in Minutia is really what makes it a combine. It's so physically interactive with the viewer and playful in a way that many people would describe it as a sculpture, yet it's against the wall. The viewer can't see it in the round, and it's made up of paint and fabric, which resemble the qualities of a painting. This piece by Stockholder also has a light source, and it was relying on the gallery in terms of it kissing the wall and using their energy source. Her use of consumable materials such as saturated plastics always draws me in. In my room, there is the element of entering another world that is full of soft pink things. When the viewer walks into the room, a sensor turns the light on and simultaneously the window opens. They become a part of the sculpture where the outside viewers look in on them caught in the act, as well as the inside viewers looking out through the now open window. This sculpture is the center of my entire thesis exhibition. It ties everything together: painting, sculpture, encaustic, found objects, entering a space, as well as moving around a space. This is childhood all wrapped up into one 4 foot by 5 foot by 7 foot box. It can be whatever you want it to be. This is my newest work. Each piece has a story behind it, and most of the parts were discarded or broken in some way. It has grown and evolved slowly as I have worked on other artworks. It is a self-portrait of sorts. There are shape references to the home, as well as fragmented mementos from family and friends. And the title is Return to Sender. As I finish my time at Purdue and head off into the real world, I plan on participating in residencies and exhibitions. My goal is to have a studio in Paris one day, and then eventually run my own artist residency with my studio on the property. As for my research, I would like to continue learning more specifically about memories and how they're constructed, and I want to collect other people's recollections of their own childhoods. I would like to thank Charles Gick, Siggy Zahner, and Jen Shire for serving on my committee and helping me with putting this show together. Thank you to Kathy Evans for always being available for any question I had or to give out a resource. Thank you to Fabian Winkler, who put a lot of his time and energy in helping to get all the lighting and technical aspects of my show together. I'm super appreciative to the people who helped with the install: Charmaine, Mayron, Shane, and Ashley, as well as all of the MFA grads, past and present, who have provided feedback and inspiration over the years. Thank you to Michael Dixon and Ann McCauley, who were both my professors in undergrad and continue to support and mentor me as I grow as an artist. Shout out to Dane, my almost husband, 9 more weeks, who has been right along with me on this journey since I took my first college art class. And last but not least, thank you to my mom for being my biggest fan and the most supportive mother in the world. Thank you for always answering my FaceTime calls to give your opinion on how I should hang something, or telling me what material I should buy in order to build something correctly. I could not have done this without you. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope some of you can make it to my show, which will be up until this Friday, April 2nd, in the Roof Galleries East at Purdue University. The galleries are open 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Now we have plenty of time for questions if anyone has any questions for me.
I have a question, Amanda.
Yep.
So it seems taking the material and process class was a real pivotal moment in the development of your work. And as you continue to explore materials, can you talk a little bit about, even in your show, I think that there's elements where the material is really embedded in meaning, and then there's material that's taking you on a journey of exploration, and maybe it's not fully defined as to why you're using that material yet. So can you just talk a little bit about material a little bit more?
Sorry, can you repeat when you said embedded, and what was the second part you said? You said
So,
embedded.
when we look at some of your work and we just listened to your talk, it makes great sense in terms of how it's imbued your own sort of personal relationship with the work. It's imbued with meaning already, the material. And then there are other things, like you walk into your room and you've explained the stuffed animals in the wall and the color pink, and we understand your language of what you're saying there, and then it kind of moves into this real other world where some of the materials aren't as fully defined with meaning yet. But I think it's powerful, and I'm glad the two coexist, because I think that's important as an artist, to have a strong relationship with something, but then also constantly be challenging yourself and seeing what else you can do. So I just wanted to hear you talk a little bit about materials in that way, the meaning versus exploration.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so, and I think you're in particular talking about how the chords and everything in that corner. Yeah. So that's a good question. Yeah, like you said, I have, all these very specific materials that I work with. And then with that piece, the chord piece, I think it has to do a lot. I don't want to repeat it too much, but with disconnection. And so with that piece in particular, I want there to be elements where things are connecting and becoming complete. And then there's going to be these other aspects where there's things missing or not meeting up correctly. And that also has to do with the element of absence and presence in my work as well. So I think some of those particular materials that I started working with more recently that don't have specific meaning behind them can relate to the feeling of disconnection, as well as kind of, like you said, like I'm exploring things too. I don't know if that answered it.
Yeah, you did sort of. What about, is it important for you to discover meaning? Like, I mean, when you came in, you didn't use concrete, and then you took Ziggy's class and you started using concrete, and then I think it's really taken on a presence, and it's taken on meaning as well, at how, its fragility, its weight, it's all this. Yeah,
to discover meaning and to give significance. So I think about that, I talked with you about that book, the significant object books, and how people will give the object significance, and then that is what makes it important. So with that particular thing, you can buy something for 50 cents at a thrift store, and then if you want to sell it on eBay, if you have this whole description and say, this was from a haunted house, or this has some kind of background, so you can give meaning to something, or yeah. So I think yeah, give meaning to different materials. Any other questions? Siggy, I know you probably have a question for me.
I don't, just because we've talked so much, and I do want to say, I heard you say that your previous professors are here.
Yeah, and Katie's here. Hi, Katie.
So I just want to say to them, good job in preparing Amanda, because she came in just so prepared to do her MFA, and she's never stopped. I don't know what you guys do up there, but wonderful to work with. So I just want to acknowledge how important the undergrad preparation is for a grad school. So anyway, but I'm just really floored by your exhibition, coming in as a painter of candy to do what you did. I'm just really impressed. And the other thing is, I have to say, I agree with you. Your mother has been an absolute sort of the pedestal upon which you stand. So I don't know if that's a very good analogy, but anyways, you stand on her shoulders for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, Amanda, I have a question for you. So just just because I know some of your backstory, and I know you're thinking about personal narrative a little bit, and I think some of that story is not pleasant and maybe even a bit sad and depressing. But a lot of your work is very colorful and it seems very joyful. And I guess I'm interested in what your intentions are for the work in terms of a viewer coming to that, because there seems to be some friction between maybe how you feel about these memories and how you're engaging with the work in terms of color and objects and things like that. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why I like working with cement so much, to contrast between all these playful or bright, colorful things. With the room sculpture in particular, I wanted to just pack full the space. And even though it's these colorful, soft, stuffed animals, when you go in there, it feels, claustrophobic. There's all these eyeballs staring at you. It's all kind of disjointed. There's a mirror on the floor. So there's like all these things looking at you and all this stuff going on. So I'm constantly playing on that boundary of just, kind of at face value, it might be like very colorful and playful, but to have kind of that edge come into play that, maybe there's something slightly off. With that piece, that was kind of like the beanbag piece with the door on it, the life is a short walk from the cradle to the grave. I think that one is a good kind of meshing together the two. The door, or the gray cement part, initially just looked like a headstone. So I wanted to combine all of like the doll clothes and other childhood elements and put those two together so that like I said, there's always a kind of reminder that, life's life's short, everything is always positive. Even though everyone who knows me thinks I'm probably always so smiley, there's always could be something else going on. But yeah, thanks for the question. That's everyone who's on, that's Michael, and he taught me how to paint and draw.
Amanda, I'd like to say just a couple things. I'm really thrilled with the evolution from your work that I'm most familiar with. Sorry, dog in the room. I had this, especially linking to the color, to the textures, to the shapes. I sense this, or I see this real sense of yearning and desire in your work. I think the pieces that I'm most familiar with were your early paintings focusing on the candy. They seemed like it seems like something every child yearned for.
Oh yeah.
Associated with happiness and indulgence, because typically they would be given to them. Anyway, I see a really strong link. And I like where you've gone with this. I like your explanations, and I like the way you fit into these pieces. I agree with Michael about this friction between us stepping in and being surrounded by pink, whether we're in the room or we're with the objects all around it, reading those as happiness, joyfulness, but they also read as excess and desire in a big way.
Definitely. Thank you.
I'd love to jump in and just say how proud I am of you, and to see this body of work. From the beginning of working with you, your interest in materiality just was overwhelming. In fact, I think that it was fun to watch you push it. And the growth between that work and this work seems substantial in that way. Working sculpturally seems like something that maybe you weren't ready for, but you always kind of wanted. And I can see how the use of materials and objects really give almost a poetic voice to some of the rendering you were trying to do in undergrad. And I think it's given you a new stage for specificity in your work, but also this kind of playful disconnection where you don't have to explain yourself. You seem to have come into your own in confidence that you don't need the sense of rendering per se to get across your point. And I think that's huge growth and a testament to Purdue and all of your work. So I just wanted to say,
Thank
well
you.
done.
Thank you so much. I'm glad you could join us.
I found something really moving in the gallery, that if you stepped out of the playhouse, like you were directly facing the bed afterwards. So there was this constant dialogue between the two pieces. It's more just a comment here, but a question I have for you is, I've seen some artifacts of performance in your documentation of yourself kind of in the Pink Room piece. And I'm curious if you're interested in exploring performance and what direction you think that might take your work.
Yeah, I was actually just talking, I brought some students into the show yesterday and I was telling them about how the baseball skin piece was going to be a wearable. And they're like, well, are you going to wear it for something? And I'm like, maybe eventually. I could see doing more work just working with the baseball skins and thinking about these, protective armors or, wearing these shrouds that I keep thinking of them as. So yes, performance, I think, could be the next thing possibly, but with the baseball skins for sure, because I'm really interested in that.
I just agree with Jen. I think performance is definitely something that you could include in your repertoire, because when I saw the baseball skins, which of course I've been aware of, but and we've talked about wearing it, I think there's an element of making work that you do wear, especially from the Pink Room. You remember the Pink Room when we went into pandemic closed down, and you took the Pink Room and you were doing the photograph things. I just think that's something you should add to your repertoire for sure. Don't disclude it because now you think, oh, I'm only doing sculpture. I think you need to expand into that for sure.
Okay.
I would like to see that baseball thing worn as well.
Okay.
But just I agree with Jen there.
Okay. Anyone else? Oh, and my brother's on here too. Hey, Brandon. Well, if no one else has anything, I would just want to thank you so much for coming to this virtual talk. Thank you, Fabian. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for everyone that has helped me along the way. And hopefully some of you can make it down to the show. I know some of you have already. But yeah, that's all.
Congratulations, Amanda.